work. The reactor's components weren't nearly as accessible as they'd been in the versions aboard the dark energy generators, mostly due to the exorbitant amount of improvisation he'd had to do. But hey, he wasn't an ancient alien species with millennia of research and apparently endless resources at his disposal. He was simply a guy with a degree in astromechanical engineering, which somehow meant that this was in his wheelhouse. Most days, he just felt like a guy with a few different types of wrenches and way too much responsibility. The whole thing was really absurd. Cavalon headed around to the arc of scaffolding toward the reactor's anterior, which faced out into the large empty hangar, Bay F9, now pragmatically known as the Reactor Bay. Though at least 80 meters square, it was modest compared to what a behemoth capital ship like the Typhus had to offer. Easily the smallest of their dozens of hangars and docking bays, but also the closest in proximity to the ship's jump drive. He arrived at the primary control terminal, a 2-meter-wide counter covered with jury-rigged holographic interfaces and repurposed view screens. He swept open the solenoid controls, and a white holographic menu materialized in the air over the terminal counter. He grumbled under his breath and tapped the activation switch. Another negative tone, this one louder, denser, and more judgmental than the one from his Nexus band. An error screen taunted him next, along with a brand new message he'd not seen the other 14 times he'd taken a stab at this. Subsystem not found. Void. He'd made it worse. He clenched his fists, knuckles going white as he pressed them into the console top and muttered, "Goddamn piece of flaming void garbage." Maybe if you didn't call it mean names? Cavalon glanced over his shoulder, down past the walkway railing on the deck 6 meters below. Jackin North stood in front of the cluster of workbenches. He stared up at Cavalon expectantly, hands on hips, looking all hygienic and not grease-stained in his unwrinkled navy blue Legion uniform. It had taken Cavalon about 2 weeks before he'd given up on maintaining a clean uniform, and Jackin about 2 more before he'd given up giving Cavalon shit about wearing nothing but a t-shirt and duty slacks. Jackin knew how to pick his battles. Cavalon took a strange amount of comfort in Jackin's composed appearance. It acted as evidence that life existed somewhere outside Bay F9, and, as was probably the point, served as a reminder of how a soldier should look. As their acting commander, Jackin had to set a precedent, lead by example, or some such nonsense. Yet even the highest-ranking officer aboard couldn't hide the impact of months of reduced rations, his face narrower, cheekbones sharper, and a sullen yellow tinge to the whites of his dark brown eyes. "How's it going?" Jackin asked, tone unnervingly even. Cavalon cast an unnecessary glance at the Nexus band on his wrist. "That time again already, boss?" The scraping assessment in Jackin's eyes somehow felt equal degrees judgmental and tolerant. Cavalon sighed. "I know it's on your regimented daily itinerary, Optio, but I'd work a lot better without you breathing down my neck every morning. Remember, it's Centurion now." "Right. What's with that anyway? I thought you were going to be CNO. You don't really need a fleet navigations officer when you don't have a fleet." Cavalon scratched his chin. "True. They were in fact a fleet of 1 at the moment. All of the other ships that had survived the Divide's collapse had proven themselves just as stranded as the Argus had been. No ion drives, no warp drives, no jump drives, and thus no ability to congregate, which held its own as an exercise in negligence. But after seeing the monumental and frankly creative ways in which the Legion had recklessly abandoned the Sentinels, Cavalon now knew it to be intentional. If you're going to banish all your criminal soldiers to the edge of the universe, no reason to give them an easy way to escape, or to mutiny, as the case may be. Cavalon knelt, letting out a groan as his joints protested. He reached under the console and grabbed a battered multimeter, then tossed it under the railing at Jackin. Jackin flinched as the device hit him square in the chest. It toppled down into his arms, and he awkwardly caught it. He leveled a glower of barely contained frustration at Cavalon. "Void kid, I'm not a time ripple." "That's what they all say."